everybody, I'm Bill Sanders, and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection. Uh, what we're going to be doing today is to take a look at some criteria for high horology watches. But first, what we want to do is we want to take a look at the watch of the week. Now, the owner of this watch is Art Leyenberger, and he sent me these pictures, and I saw it was a Stoa, and I thought, well, it's a good looking Stoa, but I wonder of all of the watches, why this one? Well, then I read about it that Art had. This is a wonderful watch. This is one of those watches that it was sort of a pre-ETA watch, and it's from the 1940s. ETA didn't come into being as a combined organization as part of Swatch until much later than that. And so a lot of these older watches they have some real finds, and I think Art got one here. This particular Stoa was from the 1940s, pre-war, and it's a new old stock, which of course means that it's brand new and got left in a warehouse somewhere and ignored. I think I have at least one of those watches. Not a Stoa, but the same idea. It's got blued hands. It's 36 millimeter, which I know by today's standards isn't that big, but it's not that bad. I have some. My Basteron Constantine overseas is 37, very comfortable size. It looks great. I mean, it's a very classic, what we call now a dress watch, but it works great as an everyday watch too. It's got the blued hands. It has a Unitas movement. Now, Unitas, yes, is part of ETA now, but it used to be independent, and it's signed a Stoa movement. You can see that in the picture there. Okay, all original parts, condition zero. Hey, congratulations, Art. That's a very fun watch of the week. Now, Art did something else. He put me on to a big project that's going on, uh, sponsored by the Fondation, Haute Horologerie. Uh, okay. The goal of the foundation in this latest project is to define what is Haute Horologerie and what watches fit into it, which ones don't. Now, the first move, I guess, or the first thing that they worked on was to come up with what they called a perimeter that would encompass the fundamentals of what they call the fine watchmaking segments. And they came up with four. The historical maisons, watchmaking companies that perpetuate a tradition and a heritage. Contemporary brands, this is another segment. Brands which belong to the present day and are characteristic of modern times. Luxury brands, these are multi-product luxury brands which invest in the art of technical and or precious fine watchmaking with creativity, innovation, and excellence. And finally, there's the artisans, creators. These are independent watchmakers and creators who draw on specific expertise and who generally carry out manufacturing, sale, and after sales of service of their products. Okay, so let's see what they came up with for this to set up the parameter. Who belongs in this parameter? Okay, so let's start off with historic maisons. What I did is that I color coded the the ones that were part of these larger groups of ownership of who has watches. The blue is for Richemont, the red is for Swatch, gray for Kering, and green for Moet and Hennessy Louis Vuitton. Okay, and looking at these things, a Lang & Son, yeah, and I think it was the other thing too. You know, it's good to see they're not all Swiss. Audemars Piguet, Blancpain, Beauvais, Fleurier, Breguet, of course, Breitling, Bulgari, Cartier, Chopard, Girard-Perregaux, Glashütte Original, H. Moser, EC, Harry Winston. Harry Winston didn't start making watches till 1989. what? What is Harry Winston doing in there? Okay, well, we'll look at that. That historic maison. They started in 1932 as a jewelry company, and they had what they did that made them famous was that they lent these big jewelries to actresses who were receiving or nominated for an Academy Award, and so uh, uh, they became known. Harry Winston became known as the jeweler of the stars. But like I said, how could they be a historic maison when they've only been making watches since 1989? Who knows? Okay, um, let's uh, let's keep on going. IWC, not a big surprise. Jaeger-LeCoultre, Jacquet Rose, Officine Panerai, Omega, Patek Philippe, Piaget, Rolex, Tag Heuer, Ulysse Nardin, Vacheron Constantin, Van Cleef and Appels, and Zenith. Okay, there is something else missing too. What about Leroy? Leroy from 1900 till 1989 had the most complex mechanical watch in existence. And they've been around since before the French Revolution. They were making watches for the crowned heads of Europe. What happened to El Leroy? Well, something did because they're not on that list. And and one of the reasons I put the color code in there, the organization was founded by Richemont, and they're going to set up all of these criteria and for historic maisons. Now, I can understand why, let's say, Seiko and Citizen and some of these other ones aren't part of historic maisons, but Harry Winston? Well, let's take a closer look at Harry Winston and what the deal is with his watches. Well, I was surprised. I got to tell you, I was surprised. Okay, now, like I said, they started in '89, but I'm going to jump ahead to 2001 and take a look at these watches. This was the one that came out was Opus One, Opus One, but the movement was Resonance by F.P. Journe, and I saw that thing and I said, "Whoa, that looks familiar." It was 38 millimeters, 6 examples, and 2 with Harry Winston diamonds in it. Okay, Harry Winston diamonds, they certainly add a lot to it. But otherwise, this is a watch, not unlike another one I know, one that I happen to have. This is the same watch. Even the dial isn't that much different. You have these 2 dials. You have the power reserve indicator. And you have the resonance wheels right next to each other in the movement. That's pretty much the same. Now I got to tell you, if somebody is coming on as a historic maison and they have that kind of quality, okay, maybe that is where they belong. Now they didn't make very many of them. They have 6 examples and 2 with Harry Winston diamonds. That's fewer than Roger Smith makes. Okay, well, so let's go back to 1989 when they first got started. What were they doing? Well, they started, they hired a couple guys, Jean-Marc Wiederrecht. He is the founder of Agincourt. and they make the most incredible movements. That Hermes in the picture there is one that won a Grand Prix award, and it has an Agenhor movement in it. In the background of Jean-Marc Wiedereck, he said his Grail watch was the Leroy one. Now that was what I was just asking about. How come they didn't include Del Leroy? Uh, I don't know. And beside Jean-Marc making the movement, they also hired this other guy, Roger Dubois. And this is a picture of one of the watches that he made that won a Grand Prix. My goodness, Harry Winston watches are really, really good watches. Whether they belong in the historic maison, I don't know. I I guess there must be some reason. Well, one reason I can tell you this: Swatch paid close to $1 billion to buy them, and when you look at the number of Swatch-owned watches in the historic maisons, now that may be a clue. Okay, well let's go on. Let's go take a look at the next category they have. It's called contemporary brands, and these are ones that when I looked at them, they were like, yeah, pretty much so. They seem to be the folks who are the the new high horology group: Armand Strom, Ateliers, Louis Monet, Cabestan, Christopher Colette, Debussy. He won the Grand Prix, the Aiguille d'Or, the highest award they had this last year. DeWitt, F.P. Journe, he's won 7 Grand Prix, 3 of which were the Aiguille d'Or. No one's won that many before. Greville Forcé, Hotlands Hublot, HYT, Laurent Ferrier, all of the rest that are there, including Roger Dubois, who was one of the watchmakers who made the movements for Harry Winston's early watches. Okay, so, and looking at that list, yeah, contemporary brands, but wait a minute. What about my Harboring 2? Why wasn't Harboring 2 included in this group? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. Here's this guy. They've won 3 Grand Prix awards. They have their own movement. It takes literally months to get a, a Harboring 2. You order a Harboring 2 here, at least in the United States, and you got to wait a few months for them to get it for you. That is extremely unusual. Now, one of the things you got to know is that they don't charge as much. Perhaps that has something to do with it. They say, well, you guys, you got to charge more to be part of us. Also, too, most of them are made of stainless steel. I think all of them are made of stainless steel, maybe. So what? You have there are a lot of the historic maisons. They have stainless steel watches. Uh, Among these contemporary brands, I don't know if any of them do, but the point is that uh, Harboring 2 almost defines everything else about high horology except for the price. Okay, next one are the luxury brands: Chanel, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Montblanc. I don't know if Louis Vuitton has won a Grand Prix award, but Chanel, Hermes, and Montblanc have. Uh, at, Luxury brands are sort of hard. They're not the same thing as fashion brands, not by a long shot. And I'm really not sure why they put them separately, but in this particular case, they seem to fit. Mont Blanc has got its own in-house. So does Hermes. So these guys are not any lightweights. Also, they make beautiful watches too. Okay, finally, you have the artists and watchmakers, and I think this is a good idea. I really like this category because these guys make a handful of them a year. Um, Andres Steyer, who we talked about last week, we were talking about the Rometoire d'Égalité. Um, Andre Prezullo, Beat Haldeman, we talked about him not long ago as he has another a resonance watch. Christian van der Klaw, who makes these incredible star watches, I'll call them. Groenfield Curry, Volentanen, Philippe Dufour, Roger Smith, Sar Paneva, Thomas Prescher, and Vianney Halter. The watch at the bottom is Vanderklaas has this claw-like rotor on the back of his. I like that. Okay, so those are the four segments that they have come up with, and this is something I'd really like to get your opinion on these. Uh, I have my own reservations, mainly not so much who they, well, to some extent who they included, but who they excluded too, and what's going on with that. So, anyhow, well, these are some things I think we need to think about in establishing our own system of, we'll call it ranking. This is very helpful because I think there are certain of these watch companies that we can definitely include in terms of high horology. But it also, I like the way they divided it up so that you really can't compare a watch by Roger Smith and that, you know, they make what 10 or 11 of them a year and Patek Philippe who makes thousands. So it's good to put them in another category. Okay, here is something that you gotta have an opinion on. I assume I can't imagine a watch collector without an opinion. And they have some other aspects that I'd like to take a look at a later date. But just to get started, what do you think of these segments, the four segments, who they included, who you think they should include? None of these, none of the contemporaries were some of the Asian groups, Seiko, Grand Seiko, none of them. And that's something that I think is not quite sure why they did that. You had a German group in there, but they're owned by Richemont, which is, I think, an essentially a Swiss company. So, okay, let's hear from you. Let's hear what you think. And this is also an invitation to subscribe. And boy, on Sunday, we're going to have $1 million watch collection. We really got a major watch collection on Sunday. So I hope to see you all then. Go ahead and subscribe. That's okay. All right, Bill Sanders with WatchArtSci.